Speaking of good events, we got such a fun... Speaking of good events...
I was like,
Oh my God, I also just cut my finger on the bottom of my chair. Look at me.
How did you do that?
I don't know. It must have been on like a rusty nail or something. Everybody, I don't know if we're cutting this out or not. Everybody, I'm bleeding. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Good Vibes FC. I'm Sam Mewis, coming to you from the Women's Game World Headquarters in Vermont.
And I'm Becky Sauerbrunn, coming to you from Portland, Oregon.
I bet I have more snow than you, Becky.
Whoa, no. Well, probably right now, but we got a couple inches a couple days ago.
Okay, we got a couple feet, sis.
Fine. But for Portland, like the city shut down, schools were closed. We don't have a lot of plowers here, so everything just shuts down. Everything.
Wow, we have nothing but plowers here. It's pretty impressive. 2 feet of snow, and everybody's just like, yeah, it's Monday. Everything's fine.
It's like, get to work.
Yeah. So snow aside, Good Vibes FC is presented by our great friends at Olipop. We love you so much. Today on the podcast, we're going to dive into the SheBelieves Cup, which kicks off on Thursday. We'll be talking more about the roster, Sonnett's 100th cap, and of course, what it's like to play with your sister. I can't wait to get there. We'll also talk about our opponents and who to keep an eye on from the Matildas, Colombia, and Japan. But first, Becky, under all of that snow in Portland, how are you?
I'm good. It's weird, Sam. Ever since retirement, building my own schedule is like such an experience because for like literally 25 years, probably even more, my schedule has always been dictated to me. Like originally it was like slid underneath your door.
At national team camp, they would slide a one-sheeter.
Yeah. One sheet under the door. And it was like, you need to be here at this time. This is what you're going to be doing. This is what you need to be wearing. And of course, like it's a little bit more lax the last few years. Now it's like on an app, but you're like always checking. You're like, I need to be here at this time. And I don't have that anymore. And so I am relearning how to build my own schedule. Like I can schedule out a few weeks. Whereas, last year it was like, whoa, 3 days in advance. I'm not quite sure I can confirm this date and time with you.
Becky, you're literally speaking my language. Like, I relate to this so much. I have this thing I keep doing where somebody will be like, hey, are you available in April for this thing? And I look at the calendar and I'm like, yeah, like I sure am, but I can't determine if I'm available in April. Like, there is this other force out there that will come and grant me the freedom to determine that I am free in April at some point between now and April. But like, that's not true. I could just say, yes, I'm free, I'm coming, and then I'm committed to that date, but I don't feel that.
Oh yeah, I'm still very hesitant. Even when we schedule these things out, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about next week.
It's not up to me.
Yeah, exactly. And
Becky.
So I am relearning how to do that. And I think I told you before, Sam, like I didn't really schedule anything. It was kind of like it's either going to work or not going to work. Like soccer is always going to take priority. And if you scheduled something during soccer, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But like now I'm like, I just schedule in everything just to like feel busy.
That's another thing that I can definitely relate to. Just filling it right on up, calendar invites.
Yeah, it's like I will run an errand here.
Yeah. Okay, something I need to relearn. This is such a great transition by me. I'm literally so impressed because I only wanted to talk to you about one thing today. And I need to talk to you about my laundry socks. Like, I do most of the laundry. Pat does most of the cooking. I do the laundry, but then I throw all the socks on the floor out of sight and I don't match them back up. And then when I need socks, I just go to the sock pile and I just pick out, then I match up one pair of socks at a time. And I just don't know how anybody has it in them to just do all the socks at once.
Are you guys a sock family? Are you sleeping in socks?
No. I don't like to sleep in socks. Sometimes when my feet are really cold, I'll start with socks on, but then I'll take them off because then I get really hot. Do you sleep in socks?
No. Oh, I hate socks. I will go without socks if possible.
Do your feet get cold in the home?
Well, I currently don't have heat, so yes, but I have slippers. So I just have slippers that I wear around.
I have slippers on right now.
Same.
Do you want to see them?
Yeah, I do.
Kristie got me them. They're from Free People. Look at these bad boys.
Oh, they're fluffy. Those look real comfortable.
They're so comfortable. Are you going to show us yours?
I mean, sure. Hold on. Let me just.
If you're listening to this on audio, I really recommend the YouTube because we are revealing our slippers. Wow, those look comfy, Bex.
Oh, super comfy.
Okay.
Super comfy.
Well, anyways, do you have any advice on the sock thing or like just keep it pushing?
Just keep on carrying it on. I mean, I'm with you. I don't really own a lot of socks, but like if they're in the laundry, I'm like, just put them together somewhere and we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, I think I need like a total sock overhaul, but I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm just going to keep picking one sock at a time out of the pile.
That must take you like minutes at a time sometimes to find a pair.
Yeah, I usually this is what I do. I sit down on the floor and I go, okay. And then I find one and then I scrounge around and then I find the other and I put them on and I get up and I go. Socks are just like the death of me and I don't know why.
Well, it seems like it might be bothering you, so you should potentially think of a better process.
If anybody has sock tips, send them my way. You can email us, womensgamemib@menandblazers.com. Okay, let's talk about She Believes, Becky. I'm really excited to get into this. The tournament starts this week. The first game is on Thursday. This is the national team's only major tournament this year, but it's a really fun one. 3-game tournament. It's really a chance for our fans to see this U.S. team playing top opponents domestically. So this tournament, we're playing Colombia, Australia, and Japan. We're going to actually get into those opponents a little bit later in the show. But first, Becky, you and I are old She Believes experts. We've been right around that block, played in the tournament multiple times. I want to talk about how the players are approaching the tournament. What do you think about the tournament just as a whole, like the timing and then the fact that these aren't friendlies, but there's actually like a winner of the whole thing?
I think in general, we should probably get rid of the term friendlies because I have yet to play in a game where I'm like, this is friendly.
This is nice.
It's never friendly. So let's just think of better names for it. I love this tournament. I've always loved this tournament. I think originally it was mostly held on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So it would be like freezing venues. And it would be mostly European teams like the Germanys, the England, the France. So it's kind of fun that it's evolved and it's now geographically, it's like everywhere. We've got teams that are coming from all across the world. So I think it's just an awesome tournament. I love how it's kind of evolved. I would say that the timing of it for US-based players is probably the most difficult part of the tournament because most of the US-based players are maybe like 2 or 3 weeks into preseason. They've maybe scrimmaged or had some inter squads. So they're like the loading aspect isn't quite there. And then you're playing some opponents that are in the midst of their season, multiple games in. And so it's a really hard test for the US-based players, I think.
I think so too. I think especially with that kind of like we're not at full fitness component. And I think to that end, we are missing some big names from this roster. Triple Espresso are not coming into camp. Mal Swanson, Sophia Wilson, and Trinity Rodman are all not coming in for various reasons. Same with Naomi Girma, who is at Chelsea recovering from that calf injury, but her head coach at Chelsea has said that she'll likely appear after this international break. So hopefully Naomi's getting better. And then Rose Lavelle is also out with injury. I'm also curious, and I want to talk about this for our listeners, but when you're on a national team squad in camp or at a tournament where there are big name players missing, what does that feel like mentally? And does the vibe of camp kind of change?
I've experienced that like one time before where I was like, wow, a lot of big names have retired or they've phased out. And that was after the 2015 World Cup. And I just remember all the younger, less experienced players, we were like, this is it. This is my time.
Yeah.
Like I will finally get the opportunity to fight for more playing time, to fight for potentially a starting spot. And so I think for a lot of players, they're like, excellent. I'm going to get a lot of minutes against a lot of quality opponents. I'll get to showcase what I can do to Emma and the technical staff. And I also think off the field, it provides opportunities for people to like step into these leadership spaces where before maybe you're like, well, this person is more experienced. I don't want to step on any toes. It's like, no, this is an opportunity to also find what you're about off the field as well and what you can mean to a team.
For sure. I think that maybe like from the outside, you might think that some of these younger players are like, well, we're missing the veterans. So like this isn't a real camp, but that's not true in this case at all because we're playing these top opponents. This is like a real tournament. There's undoubtedly like bonuses on the line. Some of these younger players are going to get their opportunity to start and play real minutes in a tournament for this team, which goes a long way when you start thinking about the cycle that's coming up. Like these reps are really, really important. And like you said, there is kind of this vacuum of leadership to fill and of regularly playing starters with who are taking up a lot of minutes. They're not in camp. I was surprised at a couple names that got left off. And I think this kind of is bringing me to my point earlier about the timing of this tournament. Hal Hirschfeld and Ashley Sanchez are not on this roster. And I was wondering if you thought, Becky, that this roster feels a little bit European heavy. So there's 7 players coming back from the WSL, the Eredivisie in the Netherlands, and the Premier League in France. And this might just be because I've been talking so much about the WSL as these games have been on. And we've obviously been talking so much about all these players moving to Europe. But the European-based players are 90 minutes fit right now. And maybe that kind of is weighing heavily on Emma's mind. Like, we have these 3 games in a short span. The European players can play those for me. And maybe these American-based midfielders are, staying home in preseason. And maybe I'm sure we're going to see Hal and Ashley back later in the year. But do you think those European players are kind of getting the edge right now because of where they are in their season?
I think possibly. And I think the fact that the roster only has 2 active goalkeepers instead of the usual 3. So I have to imagine that the technical staff and the sport performance staff took into account just the lack of loading for a lot of these players. I mean, when they were talking about Naomi Girma in particular, it was, she missed out on that January camp because of that calf injury. So she doesn't have the competitive loading that she would need to get through potentially heavy minutes in this tournament, 3 opponents, 3 games in quick succession. And so I gotta think that the loading aspect did play into it, because you don't want to start this part of the cycle off with potential injuries.
I definitely agree. I think it was a consideration. And it's honestly, we talked a lot about this last week with Lynn on Good Vibes, but it's part of maybe Emma's more holistic approach to managing these players in this system. It's like really thinking about where the players are at in the cycle, in their kind of periodization plan for the year, what they can handle, and how does she kind of still check all of these boxes of like developing young players, keeping everybody healthy, considering what each individual player needs, and maybe coming into this camp right now is better suited for certain players. So I'll be really interested to see kind of how much she rotates. I think this is like a signal that she could change the lineup kind of every game.
I expect the lineup to be very different. I think we're going to see a lot of players. I think we're going to see some debuts. But yeah, I absolutely see this probably first 6 to 7 months of this year as experimentation and working on different relationships and potentially, players in different positions that we haven't seen them. Definitely different tactics, but definitely experimentation.
I completely agree. One name that has never been left off of a She Believes roster, one name that is as constant as my socks needing to be matched up, Becky. It's like death, taxes, laundry, and Emily Sonnett on the She Believes roster. Sonnett reached her 100th cap last October and is now being honored at Thursday's match against Colombia. We mentioned this last week, but this is Sonnett's 10th She Believes Cup. I am pushing to rename it the Sonnett Believes Cup. I feel really strongly about this, Becky, and I think it has a nice ring to it.
Did you know that I played with Sonnett in her first cap?
I don't remember that, but I need to hear more.
We were playing Brazil, so like a really tough match.
Where? Do you remember where? Was I there?
I think it was in Florida. It might have been in Orlando.
Oh, I think I do remember this. Keep going.
Yeah, so we're playing Brazil, and I swear within like I was playing center back with Sonnett, and I swear in the first 5 minutes, she went into a couple tackles, and I was like, she's going to get a red card in her debut within 10 minutes. I looked at her at one point, and I was like, let's take it down a notch. Just a notch, but we're going to need to take it down. And she was like, how she kind of gets crazy eyes a little bit sometimes on the field?
I do.
I got the crazy eyes, and I was like, okay, all right.
I do. I just freaking love that about her. I feel like in moments of pressure, Sonnett is ready. She brings a lot of intensity, and she has like crushed it every chance she's gotten. Sometimes I think about when she played in 2023 in the World Cup when the team was struggling and what a big difference she made in the midfield. Yeah. I also need to say I went through so much of my career right next to Sonnett. Like, we were very much kind of in the trenches together early on, alternates at the Olympics together, which I know if anybody has been listening to me on podcasts for a while, I have talked about this so much, but like the worst parts of your experience bond you so much. And I think that was when I was like, oh, Sonnett is like my ride or die. Like, we went through this and we'll get through anything. And I truly feel that getting to 100 caps when she has had to fight through so much nonsense, a lot of coaches didn't really believe in her, and she stuck around. there's been a very rare moment where Sonnett has not been on a roster, even though coaches and media and whoever have like let her be underappreciated. And I just have so much respect for her never accepting no for an answer, like never doubting herself. I remember a couple camps in 2017, 18, she wasn't getting called in, and she went to Australia and she played in the off season for one of the Australian teams, and she did so well that Jill immediately called her right back in. And I just think Sonnett is one of those people that 100 caps did not come easy for her, and that makes it even more special and even more impressive to me. And I'm just like so obsessed with her getting this milestone because it's such an important one.
I love it too, Sammy. I mean, everything that you said, like I was at UVA earlier than her. So we never got to play together there, but of course, like I knew of her and getting to play with her with the national team. And we always talk about how hard it is to get your foot in the door with the national team, let alone to like keep your foot in the door. And everything that you said about Sonnett, about like her resilience, her fortitude, she's always one of the fittest. She is willing to play literally anywhere on the field because she wants on the field so bad. So her versatility is something that she's evolved, I think, over the years that's made her like priceless. Like any team is like lucky to have her because you can put her anywhere and she's going to thrive. And the 100 caps, like it feels like we should be celebrating 200 with her because it feels like she's just
I know,
always a presence, always been around. And I think 100 caps in general is going to be even harder of a milestone to achieve because like the FIFA windows are less, and you know we can't miss professional games anymore, and so there's no outside of FIFA window games. So I'm really, really happy, and I think for everyone to get to celebrate her, like I hope she feels all the love because 100 caps for Sonnett, so well earned, and she deserves all of it.
I know. I completely agree. I'm really proud of her, really excited for her. Lindsay actually asked me to make a video. You know how when people get their 100th cap, everybody, like the close friends of the person in the room, speak about them. And Lindsay like offered for me to make a video that I hope she plays because I like, again, truly like can't think of another person who I'm more amazed, like impressed, excited, and it like I feel like Becky, it kind of like means a lot to me that she's getting 100 caps, which obviously make it about me, but we were just together for so much of it, and it's a milestone I'm never gonna get, and I know how much it means to Sonnett. Sonnett knows how much it means to me, and like I almost feel like I am proud too that she's there because I like know what she went through, and I feel like I was a very small part of it. And so I just am like, I feel a part of it. And I think it means a lot to me that she's getting it.
Yeah. And also it's great that you're vicariously also getting this 100 cap milestone because like we talk about like needing your people in this environment because it is such a difficult environment and you need those people to lean on in some of like the darkest moments of your career. And so like absolutely you're a huge part in why Sonnett reached 100.
That's really nice.
I don't think you knew this, but Steve Swanson was our coach at UVA. So speaking of Sonnett, and he would always call us like a sisterhood. And so Sonnett's technically my sister.
Can I be in it?
I mean, you totally can't because you didn't go to UVA, but you do have a sister that also plays soccer. And so
I have my own sister.
You have your own sister. And then we also have a pair of sisters playing together on the SheBelieves Cup. We've got Alyssa and Giselle Thompson. They both got call-ups, making them just the third pair of sisters to get called up together, which I feel like is a lot, actually.
Don't you think our parents need to like meet up?
Yeah. And I think they need to be like researched for science. Because like clearly their genes are doing something that's really good.
I know. I don't really know if it's like nature or nurture or what, but like it's so cool.
It's funny because I feel like I played with your sister Kristie professionally for like a bunch of years. And then I feel like I played with you for a bunch of years on the national team. And then Kristie started getting called up when you were kind of dealing with the journey of your knee.
I know. We sandwiched it.
But I feel like you guys definitely were together at some point.
Yeah. So I actually got my first cap in 2013, and Kristie and I subbed on the field together at Algarve.
Oh.
Yeah. With Tom Sermani as the coach.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. And then we lost that game. And then
I do remember that actually.
and then I like wasn't ready to be on the team. So like I came into a few camps like or in the build up to the 2015 World Cup. I remember Kristie and I were like in the January camp together in 2015, but neither of us ended up making that roster. And then after that, I got called back in and then went through the 2016 Olympics, the 2019 World Cup, and then in the run up to the 2021 Olympics, Kristie started getting called back in too, and we were like there together. And do you remember in her, I think, first game back with the national team, it was some crazy number of 3,000 days. She had torn her ACL. She hadn't played with the national team since like literally 2014. And she scored a goal against the Netherlands.
Oh, the lefty banger.
Yes.
I do remember that.
I know. And then like we ran up and hugged each other and I was so proud of her. And then it just led to like our cute Olympics journey together as sisters. And looking back now again, I'm like, oh my God, even though we didn't win the Olympics, we got bronze and like we went to the Olympics together and it was so cool.
Ah, that's really beautiful. I actually have an Olipop gut check for this week. What is your favorite memory playing with your sister with the national team?
Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. I have my Olipop. I'm so excited.
Me too. Classic grape.
Oh my gosh. I have a root beer again. I'm just obsessed with root beer lately. Okay, my favorite memory playing with Kristie for the national team was in that build up to the Olympics. It was at one of the send-off games in Hartford, Connecticut. And I remember it was dumping down rain, absolutely pouring. But after the game, Hartford, Connecticut is close to where we're from in Massachusetts. So like a lot of family and friends had come and they were selling this beer that we had made together in the stands. And it was called USA. And we were off to the Olympics. And I remember seeing my parents so high up in the stands and holding my arms up and waving, so happy because it was like, there were very few moments on the national team, Becky, where you're like, oh my God, I like did it and I made it. And this is a moment that like, I'll never, ever, ever forget. And it was that moment because the team was already announced. Like I already made the Olympic roster. So like even anything that happened, I knew I did enough to make the roster. And so did Kristie. And then just like sharing that moment from a distance with our parents, with our family and friends in the stands, in the rain. I was so happy and so proud of both of us. And it was just, again, like one of those core memories.
Yeah. Sam, that's so beautiful.
I know. It was really, really great. I feel really lucky that I got to play with her at that level because so much of the reason that we even got there was because of each other too. Like I think that had we not had each other in our lives growing up, idolizing the national team, training, I don't know that either of us could have like made it on our own. We like leaned on each other and relied on each other so much. So I'm just so grateful. And playing with her was one of the absolute highlights of my career.
Oh, that makes me kind of wish I had a sister, like a real one.
Well, you do have your UVA sisters.
Yeah, I do.
And I'll be your sister, Becky.
Okay.
That was our Olipop gut check of the week. So leave us a comment and let us know if you think we'll see the Thompson sisters on the field together at She Believes. Huge shout out to Olipop for just being the best. There is so much more that we could dive into here with She Believes, but we have so little time. Not to worry, we're bringing you a full Sammy Banana Phone She Believes preview. That's coming out tomorrow, and I'm going to dig into more of these roster questions, including the changing of the guard in the goalkeeper position and some of the qualities of the younger players. So be sure to listen to that tomorrow, wherever you get your podcasts. Stick around because when we get back, we're going to talk in depth about who we're playing against and why you don't want to miss a single game. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, now that we've talked so much about the U.S. women's national team, I want to talk about who we're playing. So this tournament is a round robin. Everyone is going to play everyone else once. We're playing Australia, Colombia, and Japan. With a round robin tournament instead of like, a group stage and then a knockout round, Becky, what's the team doing to prepare differently or like how are they operating between games?
Well, I kind of think like of a round robin tournament like She Believes it's like an elevated group stage or like a group stage plus of a world tournament like the Olympics or the World Cup because you can afford to drop points. You could actually probably even lose a match and still be in contention to win the whole thing. But you can't drop too many points and you definitely don't want to rely on other teams to have to drop points.
Right.
And I think because goal differential is the first tiebreaker, if I remember that correctly, like you, of course, want to win. They're probably approaching all these games the same way. we want to win this game. We want to perform well and win. But you also like have to be aware of the points, the game situation. Like if you're like back to the wall and you've already given up 1 or 2 goals, and it's like if you go for it and you open yourself up to risk for more goals being scored against you, like that goal differential could very well harm you in the end. And so it's a really interesting like game strategy that you have to play, and just being like very aware of the situations that could happen. And I don't think like the players necessarily are going to be super focused on this. Like they're going to have their game plan that the technical staff wants them to employ. But I think the staff has to be a little aware. Like we might have to make some in-game changes based off the game that we just watched. And like if we really want to be in contention to win and hoist the trophy at the end, like we really need this tie. So it's interesting. Of course, we always want to win everything, but sometimes you also have to like play the game within the game.
Yeah, I always wonder about this with coaching. Like, how much are coaches kind of picking a lineup in a game plan based on the opponent? Like, I'm always so curious if Emma will be like, well, against Japan, I want to play this style of player. And I want to see how the chemistry works again between this group of people because of this Japanese player or because of the way they are set up. And I think I've always felt on the national team, for the most part, that we were so good that it was just our job to play at our best. But as the game is like, evolving and these opponents are becoming even more competitive, I wonder how much wiggle room Emma has to play around with different lineups, different rotations, different game plans in order to match us up for the most success against the opponents.
Oh, that's really fascinating. And I would imagine that aside from seeing different players play against certain opponents and seeing if they just like have what it takes, to also see if these individual players can adapt in game to challenges that are being put on them. Because I think, like you said, the way that the game is going and that we're playing opponents that are world beaters, like truly game-changing players, that you have to see if players can learn how to adapt in game to those challenges that they face. Like maybe they get, burned on the side for 1 or 2 1v1s. Like, can they watch this player change their angle, change the tactic of the defending so that they kind of negate that attack? And so it's really fascinating to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, surprise, surprise, the players are being tested. Let's get into these other teams. So obviously this is a US-based tournament that we're the only team that's played in it every year. We've won it almost every year, 7 out of the 9, and hopefully 8 out of the 10. And this is very like, it's our party and we'll win if we want to. But this year does seem particularly competitive. All of these teams have a presence on the world stage. Colombia, Australia, and Japan all appeared in this summer's Olympics, with Colombia and Japan both advancing to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and it's such a fun lineup because they all offer something different. You've got Colombia, just like so skillful and great in tight spaces. You've got Australia, who's like pretty transitional, like kind of how we play sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you've got Japan's methodical buildup. It's such a great tournament this year. And I think all those teams probably feel like they've got a chance to win it.
Yeah.
And I think it's like just a testament to where the game has evolved, that all these federations like very well could.
I know. I completely agree. It does feel like a very balanced tournament. I guess like geographically it has good balance. Obviously no teams from Europe, but a lot of teams from different regions. And then like you said, they're kind of all bringing something unique. Let's start with Colombia. I have some facts for everybody. Colombia is currently ranked 21st by FIFA. They're one of South America's top teams. They've qualified for 3 World Cups in 2011, 2015, and 2023. And in 2023, they won their group, then beat Jamaica in the round of 16, and then just barely lost to England in the quarterfinals. And this tournament was where they really like emerged as a team that everybody was talking about them. They were really making a statement. Stars like Linda Caicedo, Catalina Usme, Lacey Santos were on fire. And then fast forward to 2024, and we played them in the Gold Cup just last year. We won 3-0 in a very physical matchup. Becky, do you remember that was where we got a glimpse of AM7, Alex Morgan, in a new number, just coming out to defend her territory?
Oh, yeah. I was on the bench watching that game and I was like, oh, Alex is mad.
Yeah, I know. So big shoes to fill for AM7 this at this matchup. But then back to Colombia at the Olympics last summer, they tied Spain in regular time and then just barely lost in PKs. So I just feel like Colombia is on this really great ascent of becoming like a very strong global team.
Yeah, and they were up 2-0 in that game. Like Spain in the
Oh my
dying
God,
minutes of
yeah.
regulation, had to tie it back up. Like they almost had it. I mean, they're a difficult team to play against. And like I said earlier, like just very skillful, really good in tight spaces. All the players are great with the ball at their feet, but they're also really good about using one another to break pressure. And Myra Ramirez playing at Chelsea right now is an excellent back to goal 9. And it's kind of a rare, like you've got stretch forwards, you've got like false nines, but like a back to goal 9, like pretty rare in the women's game. And she's such a great outlet for them. She connects the back to the front. She's able to lay the ball off. She's able to do things on her own to create chances. And then you're talking about Uzme and her left-footed delivery on set pieces, super dangerous. Caicedo, I mean, need we say more? That goal against Germany in the
I know.
23 World Cup, like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it if you have Instagram because it's like always on there. But like, this is just a very gifted team. And then defensively, like crushing, like that US Gold Cup game, watching. I remember Sam Coffey going into a tackle and I was like, she's dead. But she just bounced back up because she was fine. But like, they're feisty on the defense for sure.
Definitely. I think that Colombia is a really difficult team to play against. They bring something to the game that will challenge the US. I definitely think the key player to watch for Colombia is Linda Caicedo, who you just mentioned. 19-year-old forward. She plays for Real Madrid for her club game. And like you said, Becky, she really burst onto the scene in 2023. But she's been a force for Real Madrid so far this season, who are continuing their Champions League campaign next month. And she actually won her league's Liga F. She won Player of the Month for January. So she seems to be in great form. And she's just one of those young players to keep an eye on out wide, great footwork, great finishing ability. And if they can get her the ball a lot, she'll definitely challenge some of these outside backs who are here and trying to prove themselves for the US. Then we've got the Matildas from Australia, Becky. The Matildas, why do you know why they're called the Matildas?
I should and I don't.
I don't either. But it is fun. So we are going to refer to Australia as the Matildas. They are currently ranked 15th in the FIFA rankings. The US last played them in the Olympics. But remember, they also had that crazy game against Zambia where they came from behind and they won 6-5, and it was like absolute chaos out there. Then we played them in our third group game. We won 2-1. And then since then, so they didn't make it out of the group, but since then they've had a coaching change. Tony Gustavsson, who was the head coach, he's our old US women's national team assistant coach. He left to coach the Swedish national team. So now Tom Sermani, who we actually were talking about earlier, called me in for my first cap. Shout out, Tom.
Oh, Tom.
He has now taken over as interim head coach. So going through some transitions, but their roster looks really strong for this tournament. And despite what was a disappointing Olympics for them, they always give us a good game. Like when they play the US, I just feel like physically and mentality wise, they've always like brought it and rivaled us and like kind of been like, yeah, we're going to run fast and tackle hard and stay in it to the last minute too.
Yeah, I think of all the teams that we play against, I would say probably Australia is the most comparable to us when it comes to mentality, physicality.
Yeah.
It's like we can't get away with, some of the old like kick and run, go direct, because they're like, no, like we're just as fast as you. We're just going to pick this up and do the same thing to you. I really enjoy watching Australia. A couple of players on Australia that I think we should really look out for is Kyra Cooney-Cross and Katrina Gorey. They're these like little midfield maestros, like pretty diminutive, but their technical ability and ability to like dictate the tempo in the midfield and link up with players, especially if it's Mary Fowler, like that would be a really long 90 minutes for any opponent because Mary Fowler is like on fire with City right now.
I know, especially just players like we talked about earlier who are in full fitness and in form right now. Like you mentioned Mary Fowler, who for City has, this is a stat, so I'm going to like pull it out of my memory, 2+ goal contributions 4 weeks in a row. So she's just involved in all of City's goals consistently over the past month.
That is wild.
I know. So she's crushing it. So the last game we're playing will be against Japan, which feels fitting because they are not only the highest ranked team besides us, they're in 8th in the FIFA rankings, but they're also this team that we have this long standing rivalry with. It goes all the way back to the 2011 Women's World Cup where Japan beat the US in the finals. I remember that game obviously from, home. It was just such a gut-wrenching defeat for the US, but Becky, you were actually there. That was your first World Cup, right?
Yeah, that was my first World Cup. And I remember we weren't really supposed to be watching other teams throughout the tournament. We would like sneak away and find a television and watch games.
Really?
I know. Yeah, Pia didn't want us watching other teams. So we would like be on the down low sneaking around. But we would watch Japan and they just like, they were playing such beautiful, beautiful soccer. Like I was actually like a little awestruck by them. And the country had just been devastated by the 2011 tsunami. And it really seemed like the Japanese team was just like taking on this role of being like this beacon of hope and like fortitude. And Hamari Sawa, I actually played with her for 2 years with the Washington Freedom. And I just watched her become this star throughout the tournament. I mean, she wound up scoring a lot of goals that tournament and became the FIFA Player of the Year. But she also, I think, scored the tying goal in the dying minutes to make us go into overtime. And it was really cool because at the end of the match, we lose in PKs. And I went up to her and I just wanted to like congratulate you. Like you had such an amazing tournament. It's really great seeing you. Congratulations. It was really cool because then when we had our rematch in 2015, she came up to me after we won and did the same thing. And it just shows like there is like a rivalry, but there's such a deep, deep respect between our two teams.
Yeah, that's a really, really cool story. I feel the same way. I feel nothing but respect for the Japanese team every time we've played them. I do get so agitated because it's so hard to play against them.
Hard.
But then you're just like, oh my God, I'm in awe of you. And I am so respectful of the way you approach this. I remember there was this lesson that we got taught. Actually, Steve Swanson was my U20 World Cup coach. And he like presented to us what had happened when Japan left their locker room, and basically they left it completely spotless, not a piece of trash on the ground, not a locker open, no grass or dirt anywhere. And they just bring this like beautiful respect for the game and for their surroundings and for their staff and the people working in the stadium that just makes you want to be a better player and a better person and kind of like mirror that respect for them. So there is a beautiful respect between the US and Japan when we play against them, but there is also this edge where the games are just really, really hard. We're very well-matched teams. We narrowly beat them in last year's SheBelieves Cup. Remember, that was the game that I think they scored early and we had to come back. And then they scored in like the first minute. And then we beat them even more narrowly in this summer's Olympics by just 1 goal in extra time. That was Trinity Robbins' banger in the quarterfinal. It was such an incredible moment, but Japan was really playing well the whole tournament. And I think it's worth noting that our roster has a lot of changes on it from the Olympics roster, but their roster looks pretty similar to their Olympic squad. And so knowing that we kind of barely beat them at the tournament, what might this game look like?
I think like on-field chemistry is a huge advantage on the world stage. I think you can be, supremely talented as individuals and still be successful, but a team that can like attack together, defend together, like it is really something truly special. And if you talk about the Olympics, like Emma deployed basically the same starting 11 every single game, aside from the forced changes she had to make because of, I think, an injury and yellow card accumulation. So like clearly, staff buys into the idea of chemistry as well. And when I think of like Japan, and the cohesiveness that they have, like you have to think of Saki Kumagai, and she's a player that's like played professionally for some of the best teams around the world. You've got this really experienced player that is clearly a winner, and she's so classy, Sam. Like she can play center back, she can play midfield. Her angles and defending, her decision making under pressure, like she to me is just like a reflection of that Japanese team. And like she's one of the oldest players. I think she's born in 90, and that team has gone through iterations where they've kind of phased
Yeah.
out older players, and she has
Yeah.
always remained. She is just like a
Wow.
mainstay. And so you have this player that like was at 2011 and won it and was in 2015. So like a player that like has won or competed for these world titles.
Yeah, wow. I mean, yeah, you're right to point her out. She's a player to watch for sure. And I think that, you know, having players of that caliber coming and playing in a competitive tournament domestically for our fans in the US, it just brings these players like front and center for our fans to watch. And it's such a different way to experience some of your favorite players. You mentioned Saki Kumagai, who, of course, people have watched her play for Japan for years, but now she's going to be front and center. But also, like, for Washington Spirit fans to get to watch Narumi Miura play for Japan. And then Portland Thorns fans to get to watch Australia's Mackenzie Arnold. It's really cool to see them in like a different environment and kind of safely watch them on their other teams, knowing they're coming back to your club team. And I think it's another reason to watch the other game. So the U.S. plays, but they're all double headers. And so it's kind of a reason to watch both games in a row. Or even maybe enjoy a very rare and hopefully very few goals against the U.S. Maybe we'll be able to watch with some respect and awe at the other teams. Okay, we need to take one more quick break, everybody, but don't go anywhere because we have some quick hits when we get back and a very fun email, so we'll be right there.
Welcome back to Good Vibes FC. Now it's time for our women's game weekly updates where we cover all the other news you need to know.
First up, in NWSL news, Gotham has partnered with Dove on a record-setting partnership. Dove will serve as the presenting sponsor of Keep Her in the Game. That's Gotham's community and social impact initiative launched last year to address the disproportionate rates at which adolescent girls are opting out of sports. So Dove will become an official kit partner of the team, and this is the largest back of jersey sponsorship in NWSL history.
Inject it into my veins. Well, actually, probably don't because it's very dangerous. But I really love this from Dove, and I just love seeing these huge companies get interested in women's soccer and like see the benefit, like the business benefit of pairing up with these teams and getting your logo on these jerseys.
Right.
And I especially love this initiative. I think, you know, we talk a lot about bringing women to the game, bringing young girls and young women, but it's not just enough to bring them to the game and introduce it to them. It's retaining. And we hear so much about adolescents, young teens dropping out from sport and participation. And it's like, yes, I'm so glad to see an initiative where we're trying to fight that and bring resources to that.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. I think it's such a great partnership. And I'm really happy to see Gotham involved in something like this. We also got a sneak peek at a few NWSL teams at the Coachella Valley Invitational this weekend. The San Diego Wave and the Houston Dash drew. Angel City bested the Portland Thorns.
Boo.
And Seattle Reign won their game over Bay FC thanks to a goal from Good Vibes FC co-host Lynn Biondolo. Otherwise, it was a pretty quiet week for the NWSL. Dare I say, Becky, the calm before the cup.
The calm before the chaos.
The calm before the chaos is so right. Challenge Cup is coming up in a few weeks. I'm very, very excited for it to be Challenge Cup on March 7th. And then the season kicks off the next week. It's coming right up.
It's here.
It's here. Oh, my God.
In the WSL, Chelsea beat Everton with a little help from Lauren James this weekend, adding to their unbeaten streak. Very scary thought. One player still missing from the lineup, of course, Naomi Girma. Head coach of Chelsea, Sonia Bonpastor, says that Naomi will probably make her debut after this international break. She's been recovering from a minor calf injury, has been reportedly practicing with the team and in, quote, a really good place. Obviously, there's no other place for Naomi to be in, which is great for everyone that wants to watch her. And yeah, pretty scary for the rest of the WSL as every other team is just chasing the Blues.
I know. It reminds me of when, like, for the national team, like, basically we'd have our starting lineup out there and then, like, Pino, Crystal, Tobin, and Alex would go to midfield to sub on, and you'd just be like, wait, I thought you already had your starters out here. Like, what's going on? But we were just so deep, and Chelsea is literally the same way with Naomi about to start playing for them. Arsenal beat Tottenham 5-0 in this weekend's London derby in front of 55,000 fans, all of whom, so jealous of them, got to see Emily Fox score an incredible goal. Earlier, they also had seen Chloe Kelly make her first appearance for Arsenal since 2017. Chloe just joined the Gunners on loan from Man City, and she also just got called in to the England camp to replace Beth Mead, who is injured.
Wow.
Chloe was, I know, this was huge news. It just got announced after initially being left off the roster due to a lack of playing time at City. I'm really excited for Chloe. I feel like this is kind of this must be like kind of an overwhelming week for her. I mean, she went through this really difficult and dark time at Man City where she wasn't playing. Her head coach for England said that she wasn't getting enough minutes to get called into camp. Chloe speaks out about this. Then she gets this last minute loan to Arsenal where she's played before. She seems overjoyed. And now, of course, sending best wishes to Beth Mead. We hope she's okay. But I'm really excited for Chloe that things seem to be falling into place for her. And I want to see her get this opportunity to fight for a spot on the Euros roster in the summer.
She definitely strikes me as a player that is going to take every single opportunity and just like wring all of it, like every possible good thing out of it. She strikes me as that type of player. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did play with her during my season at Man City, and she totally is. It was actually her first season at City as well. She had come from Everton, and I had not met her before, and just meeting her and seeing, she strikes me as somebody who is like from a small town and making it to Man City and now making it at Arsenal and scoring that winning goal at the Euros. Like, those were the ideas tacked up on the wall for her, and it didn't seem reachable all the time. And she's kind of this like girl from a small town that's making it work and making it happen for herself. And I'm really excited for her. I really like Chloe, and I'm after, again, what seems like a really difficult time, I'm glad things seem to be turning around.
Oh, that's great for her. Gonna wish her the best. And like you said, hopefully Beth Mead is okay as well. We also had a couple of upsets. West Ham beating Brighton and Leicester City beating Aston Villa. But in Sunday's final game, Man City beat Liverpool 4-0. And 2 of those goals were from the one and only Bunny Shaw. Both of Bunny's goals were assisted by Australian attacker Mary Fowler, who we just talked about earlier, making Mary Fowler the first player in WSL history to record 2 or more goal contributions 4 games in a row, like you said, Sam.
That was my stat from earlier.
That was your stat from earlier. Well done. You were correct.
Oh my gosh, I'm like becoming a podcast host who can just like retain facts. Like
I would hope so.
Right up here in the brain. Our final piece of English soccer news, this kind of counts because it's about the fictional soccer world. Reba, I heard a rumor that Ted Lasso might be coming back focusing on a women's team.
Oh, I love that.
How fun would that be? Obviously nothing's official yet, but rumor has it that the successful Apple TV show will be returning, featuring players from AFC Richmond's women's team. I am like very thirsty for more news about this. Ted Lasso is the epitome of a good vibe. So if anybody hears anything, please keep me posted.
Could we like maybe get asked to be like
consultants?
Like the soccer consultants?
I think that would be so fun.
So fun.
I've actually also been to Richmond, like the real Richmond in London. And it's so cute, and I like want to go so bad and just like hang out there at the pub.
So it's meant to be?
It's meant to be. Call me up, Ted Lasso. Speaking of good events, we got such a fun... Speaking of good events...
I was like,
Oh my God, I also just cut my finger on the bottom of my chair. Look at me.
How did you do that?
I don't know. It must have been on like a rusty nail or something.
Oh no.
Everybody, I don't know if we're cutting this out or not. Everybody, I'm bleeding. Speaking of good vibes, we got such a fun question from one of our listeners this week. And seeing as this episode will be dropping right after Valentine's Day, Reba, it seemed like perfect timing. So here's this email from Jules who said, "Hey Lynn, Becky, and Sam, I'm such a fan of Good Vibes. The episodes always make my day. Sam, you especially remind me of my best friend Maddie. We played club soccer together in college, and now we live on opposite coasts, so I miss her so much. You both are so fun and are always cheering on your friends, so when I listen to the pod, I always feel closer to her. That's very sweet, and I love Maddie. Because Good Vibes is so fun and chill, I'll often listen to it on my way to a first date. It helps calm my nerves and put me in a lighter mood. In honor of Valentine's Day, I'm curious, if you got to go on a first friend date with any player that you don't know super well, who would it be and what would you do for an activity? Thanks for always making my day, Jules."
I love that. You listen to it on your way to a first date?
I know. I'm like, are you going on a new first date every week? Because that just sounds stressful. And I'm so glad that we're making this podcast to help calm you down.
Oh, seriously. Maybe we should start giving out like dating advice. Although it's been a while since we've dated, so.
I was just going to say I haven't been on a date since sophomore year of college. So.
Same. Okay.
That's tough.
If I had to ask someone out for a first friend date, I think I'm going to go with Emily Sams, just because I never got to play with her, only against her briefly. And she had such an amazing year last year. I mean, she won the NWSL championship with Orlando, Defender of the Year, gold medalist. Like, let's not forget that. And I'd love to just take her to coffee and be like, hey, how are you processing all this success so quickly? Like, are you using it for motivation for this year? Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about being a center back, and let's talk about defending. Like, I just want to know what you're about.
Yeah, I love that. I, similarly to you, Becky, am going to pick a midfielder who I really idolize, Alexia Putellas. I met her one time at a Nike event. She was so nice. I loved talking to her. And I think that when I think about somebody who has reached the absolute pinnacle of the game, like winning all the awards, winning all the tournaments, it's her. But she's also been through a lot. Like, she struggled with her knee for a while. She's dealt with what the Spanish national team is going through. I think she's had a lot of ups and downs, and I would love to just go to a nice Spanish cafe and just see if she wants to be my friend.
She would be lucky to be your friend.
Oh, that is so nice, Becky. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Jules, what a seriously great question. I love so much that you asked this. And we are looking for more questions like this, everybody. So please email us at womensgamemib@menandblazers.com. Reba, we just did a whole podcast. That was
Whole
so
podcast.
fun.
It was. I love this podcast.
I still can't believe this is my job and I get to just hang out with you and Lynn every week, and like it's what I do for work.
So rough, really rough.
It's pretty amazing. All right, let's leave our listeners with a good vibe.
All right, what you got?
Okay. Pat and I went out to dinner for Valentine's Day on the day after, because that was the only day I could get a reservation. And we went to one of our favorite restaurants here in Vermont. It's called Mayday. And they have this chicken schnitzel dish. And it used to be buffalo chicken schnitzel, which like truly is, if I could like think of a dish that was like, this is Sam and Kristie Mewis coded this dish, it would have been this buffalo chicken schnitzel dish. I keep struggling to say schnitzel.
I know.
And they changed it. It is now a chicken Caesar schnitzel. Okay. But like, I'm not mad. It is literally so good. And I just wanted to like put it out there into the world for anybody who's like having a tough time. Chicken schnitzel will fix anything.
It's like that and maple lattes.
Yeah.
Together.
It's just like, you know where they used to do that thing that would be like a starter pack and they would show like a quadrant of like a person's like favorite things?
Yes.
So it would be like Sam Mewis starter pack. Mine would be like a nice maple latte, a chicken schnitzel, Finn, and then an Olipop. All right, what's your good vibe?
My good vibe this week is courtesy of my hometown MLS team, St. Louis City SC. They were kind enough to send me one of their jerseys.
Wow.
And it's a really cool jersey because it's like an ode to the heritage and the history of soccer in St. Louis. And I a lot of teams and cities talk about like, we're Soccer City USA, whatever. St. Louis truly is a city that is just like steeped in soccer heritage. You talk about the 1950s Men's World Cup, the game where we beat England, like 5 of those starters were from St. Louis. And like, that is the environment that I grew up in and was lucky enough to like, where I fell in love with the game and like learned how to play it. And so I just really love the jersey. I love what it means. And I also love that this club, it's the first woman-owned club in MLS. So shout out to their chairwoman, Carolyn Kindle. Hit me up, and Sam if you want, if you ever want to start an NWSL team.
You heard her, Carolyn. Mm-hmm. You heard her. You know what I'm going to say. Hit me up, Ted Lasso. I'm available for consulting. Okay, that's it, everybody, for this week's episode of Good Vibes FC. Please make sure that you are subscribed to our podcast feed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and to our YouTube channel. This is available wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also all over social media at Women's Game MIB. If you could also give us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts, it really helps us a ton. And maybe sometime we'll read some of those reviews on a future episode, but only the really, really nice ones. While you're on said podcast app, don't forget to listen to our other women's game show, Friendlies, which airs on Thursdays. Last week, I chatted with Sofia Huerta. And coming up this week on Thursday is U.S. Women's National Team captain Lindsey Horan, who's leading the team at SheBelieves.
Sammy, Lindsay Heaps.
Get
these last names right.
Thank you. I said it right earlier, and I said it wrong later. Yeah. And so we're all just out here
50-50.
learning. Lindsay Heaps, man. All right, with that, everybody, goodbye. I hope your socks match up and your chicken schnitzel is delicious.
I'm Becky Sauerbrunn.
And I'm Sam Mewis. Love you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.